Hey, Michelle,
Hey there.
how's it going? You
Oh,
look in good health. You look full of colors, big smile.
thank you, thank you.
Are you in
I
love with
told
somebody? You look like like oh, no. I'm happy to see you smile and be glowing because those were difficult months for everybody. So
no,
it
no.
might
I told BJ. I think it's. I've been eating a lot of fruit. Fruit
that's
seems to.
that definitely changes. Like I started eating yellow nectarines and things like that, and
Yeah,
just a few a day is enough to like we're idiots because we know it, right?
yeah.
We know it. They tell us, fruits and vegetables. Yeah, but later. Why?
Right, right. So every now and then I try to do right. You know,
I
with my
gotta,
eat.
I gotta get started. I mean, I'm not having the healthiest lifestyle right now, working endless hours. I'm trying to open a beer actually. It's going to be very white power. I'm sorry, it's a bud. So I look like a goddamn redneck with a t-shirt of metal band. I just need the wrestling federation to come behind me with Stone Cold, Steve Austin and stuff, and I'll be the ultra redneck.
Uh,
Not that I won't admit that I do really, truly, genuinely love wrestling on television. It's the best soap opera out there. It's a soap opera.
yeah, yeah. My son loved wrestling too. I could never get it because it looks so fake to me.
Well,
But I like regular soap operas.
but it's fake. It's staged. It's scripted. However, what's not fake is the athletic abilities that it requires and how much they get actually hurt. You know, but there's strong people getting hurt. So that's why when they go to MMA and like other fake martial arts, they kind of won. Brock Lesnar beat up several guys. He got beat up too, but they actually have the athletics. They understand wrestling. They just don't. If they did that for real, people would be dead or paralyzed.
Yeah,
But that means they
yeah,
understand the danger. So that means they are aware of how to actually beat somebody and how to kill them, which makes them kind of lethal. Some of them, like I fought one for training like 10 years ago, guy who had been at the WWE, a small time guy, but whoa, whoa. Yeah, he didn't know that much stuff about submission, but he knew how to avoid several stuff. So it's just, you know what? I love everything in life that is wholesome. So guys who are confident enough to come bare naked with a leather jacket to see their muscles, with a mohawk saying, Triple H, you used to be the best Undertaker, and then you took my wife. And be confident to do that for 10 minutes in front of crazy fans on the ring and then do crazy chair stuff. It's fun. It's better
well,
than,
I guess in honor of this chapter we're reading this week, I've been watching a series on Netflix called Roman Empire.
Mhm.
Um, it's a docudrama, but really pretty good. And so I'm just thinking about all those scenes of, the gladiators uh, fighting to the death as they did. So
Well,
I guess
it's
if wrestling, satisfies that part of us that
but
needs to see that kind of thing.
that's a strange thing I learned about gladiators in Europe when I was in college there. We had ancient history, and they said, it's a misconception because of comic books and also 19th century mythology in Europe about the past. Actually, only 5% died. 95% of
Oh,
them, they got injured. It was real, but they're too expensive and they were like wrestling stars. So the emperor would rarely ask them to be put down because when the emperor was doing that, it was a way to tell one of the trainers that owned these slaves and put money into it, one of the investors, for other reasons than gladiator, I dislike you. I'm going to destroy your business because you upset me. So 95% of the time, the emperor would either raise his thumb up because the audience liked the gladiator, they want to be unpopular, or because the people were for blood. By doing that, he would show that he is superior to the mob. He is a man of compassion.
Uh-huh, uh-huh.
So, and you even had Commodus, the son of Marcus Aurelius, the Trump of those times, was a gladiator.
Mm-hmm,
It was
mm-hmm.
fake and staged a lot. Gladiator, the movie. I mean, I love the movie. It's fun, it's gory, but it's all stupid because it's not even. Just when I first saw the Emperor Marcus Aurelius in the movie, he's in blue. Not a single Roman would wear blue. That's a barbaric color. The emperors were what we call porphyrus, which is a very specific bloody form of red. And so never he would have worn blue against barbarians. Also, why catapults and scorpions in the forest? Those are siege weapons. You don't use them in the forest in battle. It's stupid. You could hit your own. They're not precise weapons. You could hit your own troops. So why? So the movie is full of stuff like that. Like what? And like it was founded as a republic. No, it wasn't. It was a kingdom. It's never learn Latin and Greek when you're young because then you can't watch a movie anymore. You're like, no.
Well, let me do the opening. It may just be us tonight. I'm not
No
sure.
problem.
Uh, so let me welcome everyone to Reading for Change. Oh, here comes Gio.
Hey, Gio. Is
Okay.
that Gio or is that the start of a horror movie where somebody comes in, it's not Gio and it's actually Spirit trying to destroy us for Zoom?
Right.
I saw a movie like that. Oh, no, it's Gio. It's
way,
Gio. We're good.
way to
We're good.
start
Shut
off a
up.
Friday there.
Right.
We talked
Well,
wrestling
we're
before you came in. We were
Oh, you
talking
heard
wrestling.
wrestling.
wrestling
Oh,
and gladiators.
okay.
So I was just about to do the welcome. Welcome everybody to Reading for Change, a collective journey. We are currently continuing our journey with David Graeber, reading Debt, the first 5,000 years. And I guess we're about halfway through the book. But anyway, we're here on Friday evenings at 6 p.m. And we'll be on this book probably until the end of July. Let's see. Next week, we're going to do chapter 8, Credit versus Bullion and the Cycles of History. But tonight we're on chapter 7, Honor and Degradation, or on the foundations of contemporary civilization. So I am Michelle Odom, and I said on Tuesday, I am here sitting on the land of the Lenape, Native Americans here in Brooklyn, New York. And joined by Rick. Want to introduce yourself?
Hi, Rick Terry. I'm from Queens. I know there were lots of Native American tribes around here, but then they kind of disappeared. Nobody knows why. Of
Right,
course, we know why. We know why, but
right, right. And Gio?
Hey, everybody. I'm Georgette Moses, and I'm joining you guys from Columbia, South Carolina. And yes, we had many, many Native peoples here, still here, trying to
Yeah,
trying to make it.
Cherokee
trying to
people,
make
right?
it.
Appalachians.
Yeah,
There's
yeah.
I have a series of horrible pictures. When I was a kid, we would go to the reservation from South Carolina, and there was this guy dressed like your typical white John Wayne movie as a chief. It was feathers and stuff. Cherokees didn't wear that, whatever, and would wait in front of a tent in front of the city, and usually young. muscular guy, and we would take pictures of. He would take white kids on his lap and take pictures for us. So we would be like, and I have several of them there. It looks really odd now.
I bet.
It looks really like, oh, I have a blackface picture in a way. I gotta burn them if I want to be
Well,
president.
yeah. Well,
And
you
that
know,
shows
kind of
how
like,
insensitive we are to who they truly are as a culture. We're
yeah.
we like the which is dumb
Mm.
because it's not all of them, and not even I think any of them actually.
Yeah,
Mhm.
so I'm still highly recommending that folks get a hold of Exterminate All the Brutes, the docudrama by Raoul Peck. It's on HBO Max, but you can get a free trial to HBO Max right now through Hulu if you happen to have that. But it's really quite moving. So, okay, who wants to get us started by reading the summary, which is nice and short? Rick,
Rick volunteered.
go ahead.
No, it's just
Have
it's short, so my accent won't be a
right.
problem. Chapter 7. I'm going to try to do a very American accent.
Start with a little quote above that.
Oh, sure. So, German legal theorist Rudolf von Schering famously remarked that ancient Rome had conquered the world 3 times. The first time through its armies, the second through its religion, the third through its laws. Chapter 7. Honor and Degradation, or On the Foundations of Contemporary Civilization, reconstructs the history of honor to reveal how much basic concepts like freedom and morality took shape with degrading institutions like slavery. As he zooms in on the decline in women's freedom, Graeber explores how the transition from human to commercial economies includes the coming of patriarchy. With his lens set on medieval Irish law and ancient Mesopotamia and the Mediterranean, including Roman jurisprudence, the author considers how extreme moral crises influence the emergence of modern ethics and philosophy, as well as our language of money and debt, and left us with today's moral incoherence and difficulty thinking about what we actually mean by the term debt. And that's it.
Thank you.
I finished.
I never think your language is a problem. So,
Nice.
so yeah, so Graeber had a lot going on in this chapter. And I kind of ran out of time, and so I didn't really do as clear a job on adding questions that kind of touch on all of the major subjects. I usually try to do that, all of the major subjects that he was talking about. But, you know, I got a lot. So anyway, why don't we just start with everything that was striking for you about the chapter?
I'm sorry I talk a lot, but I have to put it out. I was astonished by the fact that patriarchy came as a revolution. Poor people in Mesopotamia were being oppressed, so their best way to avoid conflict with the authorities from the cities that were starting to rise was simply to leave. There were nomads. So the way that these guys usually use their wives as pawns, and etc., told them, okay, we won't touch your wives anymore as long as you give us grain. However, here's the advantage we give you. You are at home like we are towards you. So your wife and daughter are your property now, no longer ours. But originally, they never thought about them as property. It's the oppressor that stopped the revolution by contaminating the revolutionary with their structure. And that's how it stopped, by saying, hey, now your daughter and wife never thought as property, but I did. Think about it. I'm giving you my power over them. Oh, is that a good deal? It looks like it. Now I'm an emperor at my home. It's so
Yeah.
strange when you think about it.
Well, of course,
Yeah.
being the feminist that I am, I found that whole section really, really fascinating. And I was listening just a little while ago to a podcast of today's episode of Democracy Now, with Amy Goodman. And she has part of the show, she interviewed V, the woman that did the vagina monologues. And she just goes into really an extensive thing about how much the pandemic has led to this sort of burst of domestic violence going on, and just just a lot of stuff that women have some protection from when they're in the workforce that they don't have when they're home all day with a man with a chip on his shoulder. But it's just interesting how whether by design or not, the pandemic is exacerbating this condition of patriarchy.
I talked about it to my sister, and she said, I had an explanation that was wrong. She said, no, think about it. That means there are so many women alone. And they have boyfriends that are violent, but they're still, every woman out there alone still takes care of the kids. How many single fathers do you know? It's even a trope in romantic comedies because that means he's the perfect man because it's so rare. And you're like, okay, so why are we against abortions, we men?
I know one man that raised his children, but he was not the perfect man.
Sure, but he still did it. Usually, we always wait, even courts of law, this whole masculinist movement, they have a point in one thing. Why should the women always get the children? It's stupid in the sense that if we're in equality, why are we thinking that women naturally are more prone to taking care of children? You end up with a single mother with 5 kids, not getting pension, needing 3 jobs, and one kid does something wrong one day. They can't be there. They have to leave the job. They lose the job. Then how do they feed the kids? They got to send them to the grandma. It's a never last, and women are blamed for that. They're bad mothers. If they take drugs because, we forgive, we find Wall Street guys taking drugs to hold 16 hours a day, cool, Wolf of Wall Street, but we don't understand why women taking care of 5 children with 3 jobs and no pension is going to end up taking some relaxing things at one point that might, end up her life, but whatever, her life is, I just don't get it how our society functions. We're not thinking rationally. We're looking at people based on character, and women are supposed to be incredible mothers. Oh, a mother who doesn't like her children.
Well, one thing I like about this chapter, and I like about the book in general, is that he's really trying his best to kind of take us back to the beginning, or as far back as we have records of, to kind of show us how we got here. Why we do. And so the whole thing about how you raise the children from an African perspective, it takes a village to raise one child. So just even the model of the nuclear family, when you're lucky enough to have a nuclear family, much less a single parent home, there are places in human history where we knew that didn't work. We knew that didn't make sense. So why are we here doing the things we do the way we do them? That to me seems to be the central question that Graeber is asking.
Yeah, that's true. And the answer is because somebody benefits from lying to the rest of us and making that lie stick. Yeah. I think the thing that sticks with me the most about this chapter is that the description of a slave being someone who's been removed from their social context, ripped from it, and then having to be considered essentially dead. And that's why you can perpetrate whatever you want. Now they're a commodity that you
Right.
put a value on.
Yeah. Yeah.
And by the way, Gio, there's this idea that because you have no relationships, you're not reliable. So you're not social, so you're not a human. And this whole idea of debt again, do you have somebody to answer to you or answer about you? Or, if I get into a problem with you, do I have somebody I can talk to about you? Yes, there's my father. Yes, there's my king. When you lose everything, even no, Aristotle's, I read the chapter the other day in politics, he says, well, if a warrior begs for his life, he's not worthy because he should be aware of his debt towards his king and his relationship to his society and refuse to surrender and ask for death. Somebody who is scared of death is not worth living, is nothing but a commodity. He was a warrior, a king, and now he begs. He is worth nothing. And this idea of degradation in the Roman Empire, I mean, I was raised with that. I still have this idea that is very brutal, but that I look strangely enough with fancy, which is the powerful have duties. Somebody who doesn't do his duty well among the powerful deserves to be decapitated. Whereas the people from the common people, they should be cared for, and they make okay, they killed somebody, we should not torture them, but we should torture the powerful. It's because and it's a horribly toxic environment, but that's the idea of the aristocracy. Like, oh, you have a nobility title and you behave like that, we're gonna chop off your limbs and show you. Like in France, there was a horrible way of killing people who had committed what we call crime de lèse-majesté, which is attempting to kill the king or attempting to attack the king. We would put horses and just open the person in front of everybody. But the last guy, Damiens, who was a revolutionary who thought he had people, he was serving people in the court. He was one of those poor people doing that job, taking, they gave them a costume, put a wig, and he overheard them saying the king Louis XV was an idiot and that he should be killed. So he thought that was like everybody wanted that. So he tried to stab him with a very short blade, and he had the longer blade on the other side, but he used the shorter one. And he wanted to. It's a very French thing. Please, king, come to our help. I need to attempt your life so you realize how grave the things are. But at that time, they didn't have horses anymore trained to do that. So they used horses from the fields. It took 7 hours. They had to cut his ligaments. It's a horrible thing to read. And the thing is, that's how power works. Degradation, like the king or lords could ask one of their own vassals who had committed something dishonorable to be killed. Just it's done. But then a surgeon would come in front of all the mob. Until the 18th century in France, they would open his belly, take out all of his organs very surgically, and show that we're our property. We own every single bit of your being because you degraded yourself. Samurais think like that too, and it's a tough
Yeah.
environment.
Yeah. He has a story in the chapter about even an African village where, if you came back from having been enslaved, degraded in that way, then you were given the knife to kill yourself, you know. and yeah, no, that whole thing was really illuminating. I also the piece about ancient Rome, where they didn't necessarily see the slaves as inferior. They could recognize that in some ways, because it wasn't based on race. And
Some
so
became
in some
emperors.
ways, huh?
Some became emperors.
Yeah, in some ways they could acknowledge that the slave was superior to them in certain ways, but they were the master and they had the power. And so it was purely about power, you know.
There's a Stirner, the philosopher, who says, in Rome, great masters will look at slaves and say, "You're very," because that's something no people Graeber doesn't say. I learned in Roman history when I was doing Latin. Slaves were people who worked. Romans were people who fought in the career, paid taxes, or were just poor idiots who didn't make a life of themselves through the legion. 1 million citizens. Slaves were actually in charge of teaching, constructing buildings, engineers, architects. You have famous philosophers, slaves. And that's why at one point the master would say, you're extremely gifted, you should govern the empire. I'm going to release you, and I want you under my service. I'll pay you, but I want to educate you to become one day an emperor. Oh, sure, sure. And Stirner used to say, okay, what would have happened if the slave said, no, thank you, I'm just going to leave? He would have been killed, tortured. He would have been enslaved again because you deny my goodness. You know, that's a whole idea of the Roman Empire. Oh, we give you good things, like the Gauls that are not ancestors of the French, but they were there before us, who got conquered after 10 years of civil war. They slaughtered all the Druids who are their priests, their religion. They slaughtered them all. The Romans, first thing they did, they killed millions, like 1 million casualties. That's a huge war back then. But in 50 years, peace was absolutely guaranteed, and they had Gaulish emperors 50 years later. Why? Because their whole idea is like, look, aqueduct, hygiene, medicine, refuse it, we'll destroy you. But accept, and so it's a payment. They conquered people by giving them money more than just the military. That's in their laws, the quote from the guy, he's right. In the end, people are like, those laws work well because in the past we had civil wars. It was always the barbaric king who would win. They would rape us. Now the Romans say, if you rape, we emasculate you. Okay, we're done. We're good. You don't rape. Good. Thank you. Bye. Romans. Really good.
Oh wow. Well, speaking of slaves, let's look at question 6. Gio, you want to read question 6?
Okay. Equiano's double consciousness is seen in all slave societies. The awareness that the highest things one has to strive for are also ultimately wrong, but at the same time, the feeling that this is simply the nature of reality. This might help explain why, throughout most of history, when slaves did rebel against their masters, they rarely rebelled against slavery itself. A. This again raises the issue of how we see the possibility of change and why we may believe change is not possible, how we see the nature of reality. Let's discuss the things we see that lead so many people to believe change is not possible. And B, what are some things that may lead us to believe change is, in fact, possible?
Thank you. Yeah, his story was pretty interesting, right? Lied to over and over again by honorable men.
Well, one thing that shocked me is that for years I was a really nice guy and I got bullied and stuff, but sometimes I have fit of violence and people would just leave me alone. And when I started MMA, people were making fun of me, etc. But before I started, as soon as I started having muscles and being technically dangerous towards people who don't know how to fight, athletic and stuff, people were making fun of me in a matter of 3 months. Were saying, "Oh, you're great, man! And so, how do you do those things?" And I realized something horrible that really disappointed me. I never hung out with these guys anymore. They had ignored me for a year, even when I was depressed. Is that unfortunately strength and violence work? Not only did you get what you want, but people admire you because they fear you, and it's a drug. And until you hit a wall, like I did at one point when a friend of mine got berserk over somebody who was innocent, and I had to stop him. It's a history of violence. You grow up with violence that because violence is rewarding, and this is where I think people believe change is not possible, that we know that the things we do are wrong, but they're necessary. Oh, slavery is wrong, but we need slaves, otherwise how do we eat? That kind of stupid argument. And you hear that all the time about, everything. If we don't do that, I agree, it's bad, but how does it work? You want Medicare for all? How do we solve the problem of everybody losing their jobs, including myself in consulting? Well, why would we deal with it? What? I'm going to get a minimum wage job. Welcome to the club. But am I that essential? No, I'm not. So what I'm saying is that this whole idea of power violence is rewarding not because you get what you want, but because people just give it to you. And I think that's a big misunderstanding of how the colonists, when they arrived in what is now America, understood Native Americans, is that natives we're just being welcoming and saying, hey, here are some presents, dudes. You look like in bad shape. And the Europeans thought, wait, they think we're powerful. They're giving us shit. Okay.
Mhm.
I
Mhm.
don't know. And that's the same thing with guys and women. Oh, that girl dates me. She's hot. But I'm gonna, the more I humiliate her, the more I feel powerful because she shouldn't be in love with, but she's so in love with me, so addicted to me that I can break her. And it's horrible because this is the true feeling of many people in this country. Look, they voted for Trump because Trump was destroying the Democrats and making them look like idiots. And people felt good, like, oh, Pelosi looked like an idiot now. I hate you. The power, the feeling of being rewarded through violence is unparalleled. And that's why it's a real problem because it's like racism. It's natural racism. That's the problem. It's not artificial. It's natural in the sense like, monkeys, when they see monkeys of a different hue, they're like, what is that? Tigers are wary of humans. Racism is an animal reaction. That's why it's wrong. Because an animal reaction to everything is that if I want to copulate in the street, I should do it, right? I should be naked, by the way. That's not society. We are supposed to have consciousness, so therefore to sublime those instincts, and we're not doing it. We're justifying them constantly through our own society. It's not the function of society, of civilization. The function is that we need, and I know it's naive, to become not separate from nature, but to understand it and be like a god. Yeah, I said it. I think it's a good ambition that humans want to be God, but in the sense of God, which is all knowing and able to take care of everything and create rather than destroying. If only.
Yeah.
That was a lot,
Anything?
Rick. Wait, I'm processing with all the
Oh,
topics he
you're
rolled in together. I'm like, wow, go Rick, go. Wow. But in the, I'll just pick out a couple of things. So the complacency, right? That why should we change anything? My particular position is okay. I'm satisfied. Somebody else will think of something. Or we've never been able to fix this problem. We've tried, the way they say we're supposed to fix it. That seems right. And it hasn't worked. So eventually, you become desensitized unless it's absolutely happening to you, right? It's absolutely affecting your everyday life and ability to survive. Um, and the other thing is understanding how institutions work. How does your society work, right? And how is it affected by the laws? Yeah, and then of course the religion. There's also the factor in there. And if you don't understand how these things affect each other, then you're like, well, you're leaving. You're giving your authority over to, right, your agency over to someone who you believe has authority and more education, experience, or ability about their situation, instead of educating yourself about it and seeing, well, how can I light a fire under these people who have the resources to make the change? How can I educate other people now that I've educated myself about how important this is to today and tomorrow? So I think there's a real lack of, that motivation to do these things, or we go a little bit and then we like give up because it becomes too hard, because we become so, everything has to be easy, right, for us. There's a particular pathway that we're directed that we should go down. And if it requires a deviation left or right, or we have too much in front of us, we're like, I can't do all this. I need to go. I need to go watch my show, or whatever it is that, that's going on in your life, that is your relief valve. So I think that it kind of works both ways, how you see what's possible and how you see what's not possible. And if you can't first imagine it being possible, right, then everything else it doesn't matter, because you can't even imagine your life or the circumstance being a different way. So
Right. Yeah, that's the key issue to me, Gio, is imagination, vision. Because I think once you tell your brain something is possible, you literally flip the switch inside your brain that starts you down a path of, well, if it's possible, then the next question is how, right? And so as long as you're thinking about how, maybe you'll figure it out. But once you say, well, it's not possible, then again, this thing about equiano, it's what you believe about the nature of reality. And, so, and which is very, very tricky stuff. So when I'm walking down the street, the earth looks flat. It looks flat. I could easily just tell myself the earth is flat and go with that. But we have more information. There's more information out there, And so what you were saying about education, I agree. It's so much about how we take in new information to challenge what we believe about reality. So, but I think this chapter itself is an example, gives us some examples of how things stay the same and how things change. Because it's like that, it's like that.
It's a mutation, but it's the same disease. We went from Marx was the first to really talk about that in a way that's historically inaccurate, but he was trying to say originally it was between farmers, peasants, and the city owners. Then it was between landlords and farmers during the Middle Age, and then patricians, plebeians during the Roman Empire, and then now it's factory workers versus capitalists. And he was saying, it's a dialectic. It's going to finally reveal to everybody it's not normal. Then when you work on something, you should own it, but nobody should own anything because otherwise nothing works. And Bergson, to your point about possibility, Bergson, the French philosopher, used to say, don't think about the goal, because the goal, there are an infinite number of things to do before getting to the goal. There are an infinite number of things that can go wrong. And if you think like that, you will never start. Step by step, like an animal, don't think. You're hungry, go in the fridge. There's nothing in the fridge, go downstairs, don't think. Go grab something. It's midnight, go to 7-Eleven, don't think. And he's right, you got to do things step by step if you have a goal, but don't think too much about the goal and what can go wrong and right. Otherwise, you never act. And that's why he says a lot of academics have horrible lives because they never act. They think, the idea of like, I was naive enough in philosophy to believe maybe I can understand eternity. And they were like, no, because the philosopher said, wait, I'll do it. Yeah, I didn't get there. But in the meantime, the journey taught me everything I know about philosophy because I was naive towards the goal. I didn't try to think it's impossible to understand infinity, to define God. I was like, I'm going to find the code of reality. I didn't get it. But during that time, I studied so much that now it's like, it's a legacy. So, it's always the journey that matters. And the goal is just a pretext.
Mm-hmm. Some people call that throwing shit against the wall to see what sticks.
That's called government too. That's called government and politics. So let's see. Oh, no, they don't like it. Wait. Let's see that. Oh, they like it. Let's do this.
Right. Just do it.
That's not doo-doo brown. That's raw ochre.
No, the official term is BX25. That's more objective.
Okay.
The BX25 color is now generalized in all American buildings, thanks to the government.
Yeah.
By the way, we're against government. We're the government, but we're against it. We're just to tell you, on television.
But yeah, no, that nature of reality is such a key. And I was just listening to a story too. Today is the anniversary of Tiananmen Square. And kind of like what we see happening on January 6th, post-January 6th, is the government there, has really kind of outlawed knowledge. about the event. They really like want people to forget. Just don't think about it. And really, in 100 years, maybe no one will remember.
Well, I was lucky or unlucky enough as a kid when it happened. I was in South Korea, and the South Korean channels broadcasted the whole thing. Not like in Europe. The guy in front of the tank. Oh, that's symbolic, beautiful. He didn't die. I saw people getting slaughtered, kids,
Wow.
and I was a kid,
Wow.
and I was like, it was life, and it was brutal. And yeah, that 1,000 people probably died that day, single day, kids. And the Chinese, they're doing like the Soviets. When Stalin, there's a picture we had in France in textbooks of Lenin, the famous picture of him on the speech. There's Stalin, Trotsky, and several other guys. When Stalin took power, you have the same picture. They didn't have Photoshop, but guess what? Trotsky's gone. He never existed. And it's seamless. You don't see the change. It's like they put, I don't know how they got a picture of the podium without Trotsky, how they made it on the black and white picture. He's no longer there. He never existed. What are you talking about? Trotsky? You said that name. Okay. Would you take that train, please, to Siberia?
Wow.
So it's old story. Like there's a famous sentence from the French king Henry III when he launched the Saint Barthélemy slaughter of Protestants. He said, "Kill them all, and don't leave one left to remind me I did that." He was crying. He was crazy. He was schizophrenic and like fucking depressed. So having sex with his mother and sister, decadent. And 5,000 people died overnight. They were slaughtering by say the Holy Trinity, and they couldn't say it. They'd say, "I refuse." They horrible. And the king said that famous sentence: "Kill them all, so that not one of them remains to remind me I did that."
Yeah.
And it was with rage. Chronicles say he didn't say that like normal. He said that. So the victors try to erase their crimes necessary precisely to become powerful, so that they can still say it's part of nature. The Nazis killed the Jews, but from the first second they denied it. They had strategies to erase it. For example, people in charge of signing trains could deny it because they were talking about units. And the guy asked, units of what? The guy disappeared. So, it's violence always tries to put on, cosmetics and say it's not violence, it's natural necessity. Dresden, Hiroshima, Nagasaki, of course, the Japanese and Germans deserved a huge slap in the face, but this is it had no strategic military purpose. It was just purely psychological. Look what we can do to you. And I know people love it, and you're like, what? How do you love Hiroshima? Japanese were horrible people.
And here, of course, we're having the 100th anniversary of the Tulsa massacres going on. So there's been a lot of stuff going on around that. But that's another example of, just trying to bury history. And maybe if we don't talk about it, they won't remember.
I learned a lot about colonization, crimes, revolts from slaves. Guess what? I only learned about Tulsa last year while watching Watchmen, the show on HBO. I never knew that had happened in the United States. I knew about Wounded Knee. I knew about the Trail of Tears. This specific event was never mentioned in my life, even in books of really good scholars talking about racism.
Yeah, and
That
it
says a
just
lot.
happens, that there's still a couple of people over 100 years old who were children who went through that, who still have memories. And it was I think in the 1970s when someone in the town kind of took it on, learned about it, and took it on as his project to start to talk about it. But 50 years had gone by. Nada.
This is the only civilian airplane bombing in American history. The Japanese killed 4 people with one of these, parachuted like balloon bombs they tried to throw in California because they found it in the forest. And Tulsa, an airplane, bombed them. A goddamn airplane razed the place. I mean, you're bombing a city.
I don't know. What did they do with the move situation in Philadelphia? Did they have airplanes? I know they
No,
Do you
bombed the
think? I
neighborhood.
think
they
Tulsa is the
used
only place where they bomb civilians in America, right? Through airplanes. I mean,
well, airplanes, yes, but bombing, no,
no,
because
exactly.
Right.
moving Philadelphia was definitely uh, by the
Um,
police
yeah,
bombing. Yeah. Mm.
yeah,
Mortars and
yeah,
shit. No, yeah, but
yeah.
Tulsa, like airplanes weren't that generalized back then.
And did you all hear this week about you know when Trump cleared out the park with
Yes,
violence?
because upside down
Uh,
Bible, Satan. Oh, sorry, I said it.
Right, right, right. But Merrick Garland this week or last week um, would not. He did something that was affirming that if the government wants to use violence, like, and that was the example, perfectly fine.
Yeah,
This
there you
is
have
our
the
new
guns. What you
administration.
gonna do?
the new
Call a
one.
lawyer? That's gonna take 10 years.
Okay.
Good luck.
Okay.
Oh, all right, I'm going to read question 10.
Okay.
Honor has two contradictory meanings. One, simple integrity, like honoring our commitments, speaking truth, and obeying the law. And two, the violence required to reduce human beings to commodities. Some of the most genuinely archaic forms of money we know about appear to have been used precisely as measures of honor and degradation. The value of the power to turn others into money. A, truth is contested ground today and perhaps always has been. What honor do you see in Republicans today who diminish what we all saw in real time on national TV playing out at the US Capitol on January 6th? And B, what do they hope to gain by pretending the insurrection wasn't all that serious?
That's a rhetorical question now, wasn't it? I see this question was designed so you could let off some steam. Go ahead, Michelle.
We have to, Jill. We cannot watch all this madness every day and not let off some steam
Right.
somewhere.
But I disagree with Graeber. There is a link between both. They're not contradictory. The first is we all respect the law. We're a man of honor. I take care of my mother, my father. I take care of my children. That scumbag did not take care of his child. I don't care. He's got problems in his mind. I'm doing the work. He's not. Degrade him. He deserves to be, you know what? Like, let's make him work. Yeah, get him to get some trash. He'll learn. Communists and fascists say the same thing. Rehab through, oh, you're going to learn about the land or you're going to learn about discipline. And it goes together because this is the horrible idea is that why do we think we owe anybody anything? Because we think we individually do owe to our parents or stuff like that. If people don't do it like us, other cultures, for example, how come they have several wives? I'm not even cheating on my wife. I know I'm ugly, but yeah, it creates jealousy, envy, and also, this whole idea of honor. I'm thinking the Republicans are on the side of the honor mob, like we have honor because we use violence because our friend, our bro, our big boss was. We don't care it's right or wrong. You insulted him. Look at me. Look at me. I'm gonna come at you. And then
Right.
Democrats pretend we're the honor of the law, but they go hand in hand because the Republicans say we're the honor of the law too. That's why we elected Trump because we want to stop with all the Democrats' madness. But now it turned around.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
Nice
It,
try at explaining madness. Okay.
I'm a white European male. Trust me, I have been raised by madness. I know it's madness. You know, the French thing about, we're all equal. Yeah, yeah, yeah. We're all equal. No race, no religion. Oh, yeah, yeah, yeah. But the French found that out, which means we're a little special, right? So we talk down to people of other cultures like, yeah, we get you. You're from Nigeria. But without us, you wouldn't understand medicine. Just saying, could you say thank you, please, by giving us your resources? That's the French way of doing things. It is.
Yeah.
Okay, Rick is never going to be able to go back to France.
Oh, in France, I mean, no, they
They'll
would
be
elect me president by hating me, saying, you're so French. There's only one French guy that can be French that much because I hate the French and the French hate each other. Like families in France, like we have people dying in retirement homes, be like, where are the families? And on television, people are like, yeah, but why would we visit people we hate? Like, that's France. Like when 50 Shades of Grey came out, the government said not authorized for children under 13. And people are like, why? It's a stupid movie. Kids should be allowed to see that. It's not sexual. There's S&M. They know S&M. They see their parents. I mean, I was raised by women who had bare naked breasts, sometimes naked, and men naked, and everybody's like, yeah, that's normal. It's France. I'm like, yeah, but I'm a kid. I'm kind of embarrassed.
Okay.
Um,
Don't know how to follow that up, do you, there?
It's very simple. All the slaves in Europe, all the ancient slaves that try to flee their masters, try to run towards the sea, and they couldn't go further than France because there was the ocean. So that's why I created the French people. We say we're all the losers, idiots, morons from all the countries of Europe trying to flee their horrible life. And we're so lazy when we found the ocean, like, whatever.
Oh my goodness. That's awful.
That's actually in one of the best French books ever. That's Celine's journey to the end of the night. He starts like to say how the French were just bastards, idiots, slaves, all the losers of the world trying to flee. And we ended here and created France. Self-loathing.
Wow, that's deep. That's deep.
yeah, yeah, yeah.
But remember, just to finish, colonization in France and everywhere I was raised like that, there's a horrible colonization, but there's also the adventure. We're raised with the idea that there were horrible people, but there were good scientists going to study people. They found incredible things, cities of gold. So we have both narratives when we're raised. And this idea of adventure actually makes a lot of sense in the sense that Europeans healthy themselves, they have a horrible society with horrible religions, horrible regimes. The idea is let's go back to the savages, to the primordial times. And when they arrived, they didn't find savages, but civilizations, they got angry. That created America and Australia. Thank you very much, sir. You're up.
Rick, why don't you read question 13?
13. Oh, that's bad luck or good luck. I don't know. So feminist historian Gerda or Gerda?
I don't know.
Gerda.
Lerner identifies the difficulty distinguishing respectable and non-respectable women in the early days when women could fall into prostitution because of their father's debts or how their husbands chose to employ them. By the middle of the second millennium BC, prostitution was well established as a likely occupation for the daughters of the poor, she wrote. Virginity was a financial asset for propertied families. Policing social boundaries became the responsibility of the state, and in the Middle East, this meant respectable women had to be veiled in public. Prostitutes and slaves were not allowed to wear veils, and there were stiff penalties for those who did. Veiled women could not be bought or sold, but unveiled women were immediately recognized as available. Oh, rape. Okay. Consider how the wedding ring carries on this tradition. In what ways do we continue to identify some women as respectable and others as not so much? How does the intervention of using the term sex worker over prostitute seek to disrupt the language of respectability? I think prostitute is a very respectable profession.
In some countries, yeah. They get
Well,
breaks. They get protected.
What is the scientific term? Peripatetician. and it comes from
What is it?
Aristotle's school.
What
The
is the term?
peripateticians are those who walk, think while walking. And in the Middle Age, I don't know if Graeber talks about that, but prostitutes were veiled in Europe in the Middle Age, and they had collars, always a certain veil in every city. If a man raped them, he was emasculated, his limbs were cut, and he was thrown out of the city walls. Good luck. It was brutal,
Wow.
but it's surprising how the Middle Age uses violence for, oh, you touch a prostitute, I mean, prostitutes are they're not always enslaved, in the sense that I remember a prostitute going to a show in France, and there was this social worker saying, we can help you out of the life. She says, yeah, pay taxes. How am I paying taxes if I'm illegal? They're like, okay, but we can give you $1,000 a month and training to some certificate to do a job. I earn $8,000 a month. I'm 50. What job is for me out there? Minimum wage for 20 years. I'm good. I got my clients. And so you have this whole, and you have the whole world of traffic. And you don't, prostitution should be legalized, not legalized. Prostitutes should never be worried. Any time, whatever happens, they never get arrested for prostitution. It should not happen. Everybody else involved in the business should get arrested and beaten up with a stick. But prostitutes themselves, I don't like the word sex worker, because what does that mean? Are you a stripper? Are you a massage therapist for people who are disabled? Are you an escort, or are you victim of human trafficking? I don't like this term. I think it's like PTSD instead of shell shock. It's better. It's more confusing. It doesn't sound that bad, you know? No, prostitutes, hookers. Say it.
Well, in the ancient cultures that some of the ancient cultures that Graeber is talking about here, prostitution was sacred. You had this sacred dick sucking going on.
Yeah, because they were close to the gods. They understood pleasure instead of reproduction. Reproduction is for animals. They were experts in something godly. Greeks really liked prostitutes. Their wives, they were at home doing stuff while they were having sex with young men and a ton of women. And they were like, yeah, Greece was fun. Greece was fun.
So speaking of change, it's just interesting to see how the characterization of a type of work has changed over time.
And also there are instances that are fascinating. In Quebec, they told me the story of I don't remember the name, it's convent, Les Petites Filles du Roi, the little girls of the king. Louis XIV was worried that Quebec wasn't growing as a colony. So he said, there are not enough women, my lord. Women, but we have them, but they're old and also they're sick. Get me some nuns who are 16, 15 years old. Send them. But they're nuns. Say they're nuns. But in Quebec, let them, have fun. And they say, that's where we descend from.
Wow.
It's a joke, of course. Their Mayflower is a bunch of nuns, of 15-year-olds, virgins that came to the New World and became, let's have sex a lot. And Quebecers are very promiscuous. Like, it's easy in Quebec to have sex. Very easy for everybody. Any type, anytime. You just talk. I talked to a shop owner once, and the day after it was done. Very easy.
Never told us
They don't
that.
care. You gotta go to Quebec.
Leonie was part of our other book group, and she's from Canada. She was in Toronto though initially, but now I think she's on the other side, British Columbia.
Oh, they're not Quebec.
They're not Quebec. Okay.
Because in Quebec, most women were the rulers of Quebec for centuries while they were oppressed by the British, because most men died very young. It was cold, very difficult jobs. So they were early on used to having several men die and having several children and changing men. And so in Quebec right now, women Quebec is the only country I know that in the 90s or 2000s said, wait, women didn't earn the same salary than men for 50 years. That's unequal. okay, all companies out there, you got to send a check to those retirees and all the women who haven't paid for everything you owe them, plus inflation. And you had old women, you saw a documentary receiving a check of 165,000
Wow.
bucks. And they're the only country I know that
Nice.
did that.
Yeah.
Like, it's the country where
Wow.
when I slept with a woman one morning, she was gone. There was a note, like, I had to leave. Usually that's guys doing that. It's a very different country. You know, I was like, I felt like used. I didn't like it. Now I understand women. I'm not doing it anymore.
Oh,
Wow. Well, yeah, but Gerda Lerner's her research was really pretty interesting. Um, you know, and again, speaking of change, the image of until patriarchy came along, women were free. Women were, you know, participants in public life. Um, and so patriarchy, you know, it's like a plague. It was like a plague that hit humanity that we haven't gotten rid of yet.
But we're not even going back to the right time. I think prehistoric times show matriarchy being dominant. And you see that through the sculptures of these very fat women. To men, women were magical because they could give birth. They didn't understand necessarily that was when they had sex with her. They couldn't connect. Like, why? Because I penetrated her. She becomes the nah. And most men were hunters or gatherers, but they would go out in the forest, take risks, and expect to die young for this miracle that would lead to new generations. The the thing is that patriarchy is the hunter mentality applied to society and civilization, which is wrong. Women are the reason civilization can exist through giving birth. If men truly believe their bullshit, they would ever hurt a woman. We would hurt each other, go at war at each other, say, we're on this battlefield, stay away, women. But we're not doing that. We're you know, trying to make sure that here's the thing: we're kidnapping and raping and violating women because we don't want other men to get them. It's the whole story. And civilizations play like that. They want to destroy the ability of another a competitor to have a wealthy nation. And so nationalism, property, whatever happens always leads to violence. This idea of property, like mine. No, it's on my credit card. It's not really mine.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. Mm. Okay. Let's take a quick look at question 21. The Roman concept. Did I just read? Who just read?
no, Rick
I
just
did.
read. Hmm. So
Okay.
it's your turn.
The Roman concept of liberty leads us to see ourselves not as people with the ability to form mutual relationships, but as possessors of absolute power to use and abuse our conquests. This leads to strange fantasies of liberal philosophers like Hobbes, Locke, and Smith about the origins of human society. Intellectuals of the past 200 years have tried to flee from this tradition, but have not effectively done so. Most of our precious rights and freedoms are a series of exceptions to an overall moral and legal framework that suggests we shouldn't really have them in the first place. Violence is pushed out of view, but this is largely because we're no longer able to imagine what a world based on social arrangements that did not require the continual threat of tasers and surveillance cameras would even look like. Question: wow. What can you offer to a vision of a world based on social arrangements that did not require the continual threat of tasers and surveillance cameras? What would be the basic requirements of such a world? So
Well,
that's another how do we create change question.
the people we slaughtered, Amazonians, so-called primitive tribes in Africa, which were not primitive, they had sustained themselves for millenniums without going to other war. Look at Australians having this ritual of replicating war for one day during the year. Think about also the Romans. Yes, they went to war, but once war was over, they weren't oppressing people anymore and integrating them right away. They're rational. Um, it's. I think Hobbes, the guy who responded to Hobbes, Locke, and Smith was Rousseau, who said, no, no, we're not a wolf. Humans are not a wolf for each other. That's Hobbes. The idea that, and Hume also contested, and all the British philosophers contested that by saying, no, this whole idea relies on the idea there's absolute scarcity. That if I don't kill somebody, he'll take my food. This is not true. And Hume uses the term relative scarcity. And this is how he says reality, and Rousseau agrees with him, was originally social arrangements. I don't have that. Hey, you have that. Hey, can I share? Yeah, but I don't have enough. But I need this. I actually have that. Oh, yeah, let's talk. Let's be friends. You know what? If you want, you can take my shit whenever you want, as long as I can take. Oh, sure. It's not commerce per se. It's an arrangement. These civilizations did exist and have existed, most of them, but the whole mythology that were like animals, and you look at animals, that's not true. They have social arrangements, even between species. Like think about this, all the fish that use other fish to clean them up. So I think the philosophers of that time were trying to say that they were thinking abstractedly about something they were witnessing, which was the 18th. Hobbes writes after Cromwell, after the religion wars in Europe, as well as all these philosophers who say that everywhere. Why? Because they were like, people are insane, they're savages. When there's no king, everything goes to yeah, but because there was a kingdom before and there was a specific order, people become insane. They thought it was natural when it was engineered by the collapse of an unfair society. So they projected that onto the origins of mankind, and you're like, no, you're wrong. But it got into people's minds because that's the way to do commerce. You want to screw up. Remember, originally you only give money to people you consider enemies. You only negotiate with enemies. Well, that's what we do. Negotiating is the best thing in life, right? It proves you're smart. No, it proves you're an enemy.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm. Thank you. Um, well, I guess I would say I think one thing in a world of social in a world that doesn't require tasers and surveillance cameras, a basic thing is that it would need to be more equitable. As long as we have the sort of level of obscene inequality that we have, then then those who have are constantly in fear, that those who don't have are going to try to take their stuff. And so, they've got to have this entire military apparatus. They've got to have, all of this domestic security in place because there is so much injustice and inequality going on in the world. And so, even as we look at the unequal distribution of the COVID-19 vaccine, it's like everything we do, we start out to make sure that we have more. And so you're creating enemies. It's like we have to learn how to stop creating enemies.
But you see, we were right. They hate us now. That means they hated us back then. So we were right. How they redefine things like, hey, Arabs hate us. Yeah, but could you look at their history and yours? No, we were right to bomb them.
Right. right. The Israeli-Palestinian thing, right. It's like, what do
Jews
you
have been there for
expect?
5,000 years, didn't you know? There was nobody there in 1947 that lived on farms and land. Nobody. Nobody. And the other Israeli argument is, yeah, but we made the land wealthy. Yeah, thanks to funding from people who were felt guilty about, killing you all. Um, that's
Yeah.
the biggest achievement of Aryans. We managed to get Semites to kill each other, despite us being the common oppressor of both Arabs and Jews. Like, we're good.
Wow.
We're good. That's why we're evil.
So
We're
good.
evil like the villain in the Bond movie. Seriously, we need a Idris Elba to come and get us. Seriously,
No.
we need a
Wow.
badass from another nation to steal Europeans. That's enough.
Gio, can you imagine a world without tasers and surveillance cameras?
Oh boy. It's hard, but you well, you have to in some way. And I think I'm going to the only way I can see that happening is you know an un uh, to change the way we view uh, our use of energy. I don't know if you've heard this before, but this thing called free energy. Uh, it, you know, it's based off of some technologies the government got from some of their off-planet visitors, and so this has
Okay.
been going on for decades. The fight to integrate it into, our uh, society without the hullabaloo of, oh no, now we have to divulge blah 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 and who met who when and made what kind of deal. And so on the one hand, where you see all this UFO disclosure going on, like, okay, how long has the ufology community been waiting? Yeah, it's going to happen with this president, that president. Never does, because there are a lot of other important pieces involved. But because the main thing is about money, it's about money. And so if you allow that, then you must allow the technologies that, and most of them are in under the helm of the government, but a lot more are out there and have been put out in the commercial world, where these corporations have, exclusive rights use of that. But if you allow everyone to have the use of these technologies, now you're leveling the playing field. Why must I pay, an exorbitant rate for my electricity when I can just, it's coming right out of the air, however they do it. I don't know. But the fact that the thing exists and will displace an archaic system of energies that help keep divisions and hierarchies of people on socioeconomic scales and national, globally, countries, and the violence that ensues because, oh, that country's got oil under there. Let's not send in the Jekylls and, and take their stuff and make it look like they just had a social problem. But it's really about oil. So, I mean, how
No,
long
but
have we?
oil is going
Mhm.
back to them. We're just building our factories there. They'll get some. We'll help them. Why? You're
So I
anti-American.
don't I don't know
Yeah.
if I've heard of free energy, but wasn't this the issue, or is it a part of the issue with Tesla,
Oh, Tesla, yeah.
Well,
that he had a
But
way?
kinda.
Tesla lost
Okay.
against Edison because here's the thing with the Edison technology: it takes effort, it pollutes, but it takes a lot of middlemen. It creates jobs.
Mhm.
Tesla is like, it's there. Oh, no more jobs. Now there's the box. Same thing. People don't realize the motor that's been used on cars in the other 19th century was competing against the water-based one,
Yes.
non-polluting. But again, not enough middlemen. Don't create jobs. Well, I want money. I get more money if I get more people involved. But you mean this poor guy can get full energy? Yeah, it will change the world.
Yeah, and
It's about money. Why are
you
you doing?
know,
No, that's what
right?
they do.
Just crazy. Dr. Stephen Greer, who's been a proponent of the releasing of the information from the government about the free energy, and uh, he's been working, I guess, about 30, 40 years, a long time he's invested his life. He's one of the cats who says it has to happen all at once, because if they try to issue it out, slow roll it out into society, it'll be the same thing again. You'll have extremely poor people trying to survive and paying through their teeth, to have this energy that other people are making great amounts of wealth off of. So the thing is, the most essential uh, way to make that work would be everybody has to have it right now. Okay, everybody. And so
Mhm.
somehow evening the playing field for people in that way, because if you don't have to worry about, how you're going to heat or cool yourself, or run your device that gets you from here to there, or power your computer, hey, they've just lost another huge hook that they have in control mechanism over your life, your existence, your ability to create wealth and keep it in your, in your family. If you know,
What all manipulators know, whether at the government level or individual level, is you deprive somebody from their essential needs and they don't revolt. Revolutions always happen when wealth starts showing up and people get better food. Like the 18th century in France, the revolution happened precisely because all of a sudden people were not starving anymore. But and children started surviving thanks to hygiene progress. So people were like, wait, in the past, the first child would take the farm, the second child would go to the army, and the third child would go to a monastery. Now we have seven. So you had more and more people coming in trying to do basic jobs on a daily basis without a family social status. Libya, same thing. They started seeing skyscrapers come up. Tunisia, same thing. And it all started with poor people who are trying to sell their stuff. Tunisia, it's the guy got his car taken over and put himself on fire. That's what started the Jasmine Revolution and the Arab Spring, and it spread all over the place because people were seeing on television New York City, France, and also how Gaddafi saying, I hate the French, but going to see Sarkozy, so like, wait, there's a contradiction. They tell me I suffer because of the Europeans, and he's getting money. Revolutions start when people have enough food to start thinking. So good dictators know what you do. You don't let them feed well. You put them in a situation where every single day they're scared. And that's America. The best dictatorship in the world is where you don't have a dictator, but you have a system doing it for you called capitalism. You're going to die
Right.
tomorrow if you don't have a job. You're not going to eat. Your children will be taken
Because
away
that's
from you.
right. Because that's the thing. We have the technology. Nobody needs to starve. You know, it, it, we're just we're just being played. We're just being played. And I tried to have a little bit of optimism early into the pandemic, as Gio was saying about the free energy that the doctor is saying it has to happen all at once. My optimism was that maybe we're at one of those critical junctures where a whole lot of things that have needed to happen for a long time can start to happen. But
shaking his head
People are
like, no, not.
drugged to that life because remember the push to reopen the economy. I was like telling people, so I didn't know the American economy relied entirely on spas, hairdressers, bars, and gyms because that was the argument of everybody to reopen. I want to go to the gym, the hairdresser. I was like, wait, is that our whole economy now? Like, this is what people are worried about, not about I need to go back to work to feed my children. The people who were actually in that situation understood the pandemic, strangely enough, because they were poor. So people around them were dying. But people in the middle class were like, I want to go to a hairdresser. Like, what?
yeah,
Yeah.
and we're just being played. I mean, that's just it.
We have no money. Remember 2008? After that, we have no money left. No money. I'm sorry. No money. 2020. Companies are struggling. Here's $3 trillion. Wait, where did you get that money? Oh, we had some. But
Yeah.
Yeah,
what?
well, They
Yeah.
can print whatever they need. That was the message of Jerome Powell, chairman of the Fed, early into the pandemic. It is the message of radical economists. Because in as much as the dollar is not tied to anything, they can print whatever they need. They could provide a guaranteed income to each every one of us if they wanted to. But they don't want us to believe that that's possible. And it is the petty things that you're talking about, just like these states that started rejecting, unemployment assistance because
Yeah.
they want to try to force their workers back into the
To
workforce.
slavery.
Right.
I'm sorry, but I learned that in Kentucky, if you work in a restaurant, your minimum wage hasn't really raised since the 1970s, still 280. You make all your money out of tips. What is going on? $2.80 an hour right now? Yeah, it's tantamount to slavery. So that's why these
Yes,
guys are not going back to work.
yes,
Yes. Because you can't
yes,
pay rent with an extra three hundred
The guy's been
dollars
working on
from.
it for 30 years.
right, right. So, so there are a lot of things like that don't have to be the way they are. I just started listening, Michael Moore is one of my favorite people podcasts. And he interviewed this guy, Baratunde, somebody recently. Pretty good discussion. I don't know if I shared it. But Baratunde has his own podcast called How to Citizen. And what he's talking about, he's just basically trying to help people understand that voting is one thing, but it's actually one small thing. There are actually a whole lot of other things that we can and should be doing to participate as full citizens. And so his podcast is designed to give people some ideas about what those other things are. And he's also trying to fill the gap in civic education that, a lot of children no longer receive. So we all know there's been a very successful campaign to dumb Americans down. But Baratunde is one of the guys that's out there in his own small way trying to fill a gap that he sees. And so I think that that's a big part of when we talk about what kinds of changes are possible. A lot of what's possible hinges on the participation of us as citizens. And so if we don't know how to do that, then we are where we are.
Well, remember when
Yeah.
Trump was elected, people say, "Oh, he's going to be controlled because we have, safeguards and shit." And I remember telling people safeguards only exist if you believe in them. If the
Yeah.
judge believes he's a judge, if the Supreme Court believe they're a Supreme Court, if they realize they're just guys in robes pretending to know what they're talking about, and that people realize that the whole shenanigan is gone. And that's what pretty much happened with the Capitol. And people don't realize how damaging it is when people don't believe in democratic institutions or saying, "Oh, we should have a coup like in Burma." Like, yeah, democracy only survives because of faith. And democracy survived for so many years in the West because we're like, we owe a debt to those who died during the Second World War. But now the debt is no longer there. So the idea of debt is strange too, because it also avoids catastrophes when people feel indebted towards all the casualties of the Second World War. Not just soldiers, but civilians. Like, God, 6 months ago, me, Jew, I would have been slaughtered, and now I'm free. Yeah, I'm going to work and pay my taxes. And no, we shouldn't fight. But now, this generation being gone, people are like, you know what? I don't care. Hitler was right. Well, how do you say that? No, the genocide didn't happen. And I remember a movie, The Believer, the first movie by Ryan Gosling, by the way, that people don't remember, about a Jewish neo-Nazi. And it's a movie about faith in the end. It's not about Nazis, but he's at a sensitivity training with Holocaust survivors because they did something wrong in a kosher restaurant. And one guy says, Danny, the Holocaust didn't happen. It's all a bunch of bollocks. Mostly 50,000 Jews died in the camps, and all the Jews say, how then? And then Danny interrupts everybody and says, no, if Hitler didn't kill 6 million Jews, why is he a hero? And you realize he's so extreme, he's this way. The others are trying to deny the genocide. The real Nazis, in my opinion, are the real dangerous ones, are like Trump say, so what? They died. Who cares? You're like, oh. The guys who try to deny want to be politically correct. They want to be accepted. They want to convince you Nazism is good, even for you, Michelle. But then the real Nazis are like, no, I'm not going to convince her.
Yeah.
And they're the dangerous ones. And Trump was like that. You should apologize. Why? They're ugly. You rate them, but they're ugly. Wow.
Yeah.
Wow. You are lethal.
I thought about him a lot during this chapter. So if you guys look over some of the other questions, he was, I think, here it is, question 20. I apologize. I said, okay, apologies for continuing to invoke the image of the monster, the former guy. But really, this whole question of honor and particularly degradation, how could I not think of him?
Yeah, he rewards people for their submission. That's honor. And people who ask questions, you're nasty. Nasty. I know your mother. She's a slut. What? You don't know my mother? Yes, I know her. I know her. What? And we should have learned that from Jeb Bush. A man who is smart, educated, even if you disagree with him, cannot sustain attacks from an irrational, childish man. And that's why people praise violence, because you know what? We could have a real discussion about how to convince you, or I could slap you in the face, take your money, and say, you're going to believe in what I say. Oh, yes, you see, I was right. You feel better now, like the mob. And it's rewarding because nobody, deep down inside, it's fear that has been so much used to being rage that it doesn't even know it's based on fear originally. It's like power to them. And it's just.
Did you see that punk ass Mike Pence come out today?
No.
Yes, she said we will never
what
see
did
eye
I
to
almost
eye.
got lynched Pence say? What?
We'll never see eye to eye with the president on January 6th. No, he tried to kill you. He tried to murder you. It's like Ted Cruz. He told your wife was an idiot and crazy woman, and you're still praising him. Ted, you deserve. Okay, see, the honor's coming back. Ted, you deserve to be emasculated and thrown into an ocean as well as you, Mike. And it's horrible because the reflex is there. The degradation comes back. The will to degrade these people, like, oh, and this is when you become your enemy.
Yeah. Yeah.
It's just crazy. It's crazy. I mean, when we can discuss it, outside of the box here with rational verbiage. It just seems like, why do we have to go back? Do we have to go back?
But I have a solution nobody thought about.
What's
come out, I'm Trump, but I say I'm God. And people deny me, like, you suck. Your mother's nasty. You're all nasty. And at first, people say he's crazy. After 4 or 5 years, I got my religion. I'm telling you, that's a horrible thing. If you want to make money easily in America, you just scam people into believing you're so overpowerful. And Trump showed the way. He's the snake oil. You know what? Trump is the old ghost of that guy in the West with snake oil saying, it has cocaine, tobacco, cyanide. It will cure everything. That's Donald Trump. That's this ghost, this haunting thing. America is such a haunting place. There are ghosts everywhere. The ghosts of slavery are everywhere. The ghosts of the West are everywhere. You see how this country was built on violence as the structure, not even as a moral principle, just the structure. Slavery, the railroad with Chinese people were literally enslaved. Yeah, sure, they were getting paid, but they had to reimburse their payment. Native Americans being slaughtered, and not even in the name of all white people. That's, I think, a big misunderstanding. Only those that have pure European blood, which doesn't mean the Irish or the Italians or the Jews. The guys who are conservatives by being Italian, Jewish, or Irish are funny because they don't realize that the day black people are gone, they're next. They're considered brown in Europe. The white people in Europe, white, they're Norway, they're Germany, they're the Netherlands, they're England. The French, we were called the white N-word by the British for years. I can't say it's my word, but they did that. And we're like, but why? That's uncalled for.
Yeah.
Because somebody's got to play that role.
Right? What's wrong with us? What's wrong with humanity? We got issues.
Yeah, we do.
Yeah, deep. So anyway, I'm going to keep hope alive.
You know what? They're scared because they know white people are becoming the majority minority. But now we have the name minority attached to us. Who's going to save our colleges? Who's going to come to our neighborhood, save our kids?
Well, that's coming next, isn't it?
Because I watch another of these movies with Hilary Swank going to a school and helping them out. And you're like, I don't know any white people that ever did that. All those that I know that were trying to teach in some neighborhoods, they ask for their mutation in 2 months. They're like, I need to get out. I need to. None of them trying to save the kids. They're like, they're crazy. You're gonna kill me.
Yeah.
But these movies are still getting made.
Yeah.
All right, you all. Anything else? Anna?
Stay safe.
Stay safe. I get my second vaccine next Wednesday.
Okay.
Hopefully, they say it's worse, the second one. You might get 3 or 4 days a little bit in bed, groggy, so brace yourself.
Oh.
I am. Well, I was about to tell you, if I don't show up, then you'll know I dropped dead. So
I'll report you to Pfizer or Moderna. I'll say, hey, she died, and they'll be like, yeah, but are you sure it was the vaccine?
Yeah, there you go.
Yeah, it's kind of super close, Oh, but she had comorbid conditions, so it's okay.
Exactly.
Yes.
Exactly. But I did great with the first shot, so I'm hoping it won't be too bad.
You'll be good, and but now it's strange. When I go near a G5 tower, I get beeps from Bill Gates, because I have the microchip in me. So
no, not you.
no, but when I need Wi-Fi, I don't have. People complain about Bill Gates putting microchips into our vaccines, but seriously, I get connection even in deep forest. I'm really happy about that. I get really cool websites now. I got like super Amazon, like I got Amazon gift cards now. It's a cool thing. I don't get why people are so angry at Bill Gates. Put more microchips in me.
Bill Gates knows everything he wants to know about me.
Yeah, and that's creepy when his wife divorced when she learned that. Wait, you already knew that guy had been convicted for child trafficking? Yeah, you still hang out with him. He's pretty cool, Why? You're the richest man on earth. Why would you need his money? I know he's got investments. Let's have a divorce.
The lamest excuse.
I mean, if I tell to Michelle, Epstein was a good friend, and what people tell about him is not true. It's like Bill Cosby, or I know these guys are good people. You would be like, okay, Rick, have a good night. No, they're good friends. No, I knew the problems they had, but we hang out sometimes in their mansions with other women. Goodbye.
Thanks for the intel.
Look, don't tell me anything I might have to get X for later, okay?
When Dershowitz was named in the Epstein investigation by the press, he wrote on Twitter, "We should not abolished laws about child marriage because, and everybody's like, this is very bad timing. Are you trying to justify yourself through, legal opinion? And like, why do you write that? You're dumb. You're an idiot, a criminal pedophile, and you're dumb. Why are you still alive? Oh, degradation comes back.
I learned a new word in this chapter. Pederasty.
Oh yeah, there are many famous pederasts.
Pederasts.
Mm-hmm.
How do you say the word pederasty? Pederast?
Pederast.
Okay.
Yeah, usually that means young men. Like
Yeah.
16, 17.
Yeah.
Greek
Man, boy,
statues.
love.
No, Greek statues. It's refined. It's very refined. We're initiating people to not wanting to be gay afterwards. Like, yeah, that old guy touched me in the butt, and I don't want that anymore. French literature is full of that. That's why I'm talking like that. Like Celine used to criticize Proust by saying Proust make everybody think it was really cool to have young boys having anal sex in pensions. It started when I was young. I wrote it in my book too. Seriously, that's true, by the way. That's true. He's like,
Need to
we
read
used to.
more.
Oh no, European. That's why
Wow.
Europeans. When there was this whole thing about little cuties in Netflix, the scandal, the French, everybody was like, in
Yeah.
Europe, what's wrong with them? It's a criticism of sexualization of children, and we have to be realistic and show them sexualized. So you're like, okay, like commercials in
Yeah.
France in the subway with bare naked breasts for years.
Yeah, when I was growing up, what was her name? The famous, oh, now I'm going to mess up her name. Barbeau? Is that her last name? You
Brigitte
know,
Bardot.
Adrian.
Now
a,
she's a fascist. She hates Arabs
is
and
she?
Jews.
Oh my
Hell
God.
no, she votes for the far right. She even thinks the far right doesn't go far enough to destroy the Arabs. Yeah, nobody talks to
Wow.
her anymore. We're like, okay, hi Brigitte, you're
Okay.
cold.
Yeah.
Oh,
Okay.
Adrian Barbeau?
Bridget
Brigitte.
Bridget Barbeau.
And God created women. The famous movie where she dances and we're like, ooh.
Yeah, and like, oh, breasts. Yeah, that's normal in France, and that was my introduction to
Oh
France.
no, we were excited because we didn't care about her breasts. We see too many, but for once they showed us the pussy. We're horrible people. We deserve to be
So,
destroyed.
so is this a vote for or against more physical freedom, more sexual freedom? I don't know.
Oh, the French consider that women should be free of having sex with everybody. So that means everybody, not
Oh,
anybody.
no.
So the
Oh,
French are
oh.
like, "Hey, baby, let's have sex." She's like, "No," but she had sex with all my friends. Why don't you have sex with me? And she's like, "No." You're such a slut. That's the French mentality. It's hard. It's another form of misogyny, sexism. That's horrible. Like recently, there was this soccer anchor who's a woman who denounced a guy who used to touch her butt in front of everybody, like, "Hey, you got good boobs and shit." And the guy got fired, and everybody was like, "Come on, why are you so mean towards this guy who was just being, complimenting you?" She's like, "No, it was traumatizing. You're being Americanized." That's her new thing. You're being Americanized. You talk about race in France, police brutality, Americanization. Those are ideas from the other. It's not true. It doesn't apply to us. We're not racist. We're not violent. We're a republic. We're perfect. We invented the human rights. Everybody sucks. France. That's my left.
Wow.
And, I mean, I guess, Gio, I was telling you all about it was Cardi B and
Oh.
somebody.
And the Stallion. Oh yeah, WAP.
Oh
WAP.
my goodness.
I can't listen to that song because I need to hide myself in public because I can't walk with no. These girls are crazy. Why are they doing this to human beings? I cannot walk when it's sung. I need to run away. I need to hide.
But I was listening to a young black woman on Trevor Noah's podcast a little while ago. And she was talking about, how old women like us are so stuck up. We don't understand, freedom with your sexuality. And she was strongly in defense. Cardi B and this other woman did this
Stallion,
dance
wow.
on one of the award shows maybe a month or so ago. That was a bit much for me, I must admit.
Well, the lyrics are pretty
So,
cool. Whores in this house. There's some whores in this house. There's some whores in this house. There's some whores in this house. Hold up. I said certified freak 7 days a week. Wet ass pussy. Make that pull-out game weak. Woo. Ah, yeah. Yeah, you fucking with some wet ass pussy. Bring a bucket and a mop for this wet ass pussy. Give me everything you got for this wet ass pussy. Yeah, no, so you know.
Well,
It goes
now
on
that
like
we've
that.
heard the lyrics, we know that the dancing you're going to describe there, Michelle, is quite apropos.
No, that's an evil song. I agree. It should be banned. People were talking about Iron Maiden and Black Sabbath. They were wrong. These guys were not scary. They are.
So yeah, so I don't understand what's going on in the world. I've accepted that. Okay, I'm old because I just can't do it.
No, but the thing is, let's be honest. Only in America have I found women who are that way. Like all over the world, it's like, okay, this is the first time. No, what are you doing? Not there. No. So you learn like she's a woman. I have to be careful. In America, it's like, hey, how's it going? What are you doing? What? And then they put you on the ground and you do stuff, and then you end up, I end up in fetal position afterwards, and I'm like, I wanted to be in a poor movie, but I never thought it would do that to me. I don't want to be in one anymore. I want love and shit like that because American women will use you.
Not all American women are the same.
My generation, it's I avoid them and I avoid everybody now. I'm traumatized. I'm asexual. Thank you very much.
Oh my goodness.
Yeah, yeah. So all right, I'm going to return to watching the Roman Empire on Netflix. Geo, it's very good. I already finished the few episodes that they had on Caligula, but I think I may give him another watch.
He's so exciting.
Oh yeah, right. I know what you're saying. You're like, no, I like Sports Illustrated for the photos. Caligula, it's sure, it's fascinating, right? All
Some
the
very
gatherings he
important
had at night.
political concepts.
Yeah, it's all about politics, right? All politics through orgies.
Yes.
Yes. So, all right, you all have a good week, and hopefully, I will see you next week.
Yes. Take your
Well,
supplements.
no, the second
You
microchip is a little more difficult to digest, but trust me, you'll get way more broadband.
better
Way
reception.
more. Oh yeah, 5G, even 6G. I saw 6G on my phone. I was like, wow, Bill Gates, you're the best.
Oh my
Well,
goodness.
that's good because I need more broadband.
Exactly. I mean, people complain. They wouldn't do conspiracy theories if people were smart enough to understand the advantage. That's all I'm saying.
What I really could use is that $1 million lottery.
Yeah.
It's getting wild.
I almost wrote a letter saying it's unfair because I did it on time. So if
Do
I
you
had been
get it
hesitant, I would
prorated?
win money. I hate you guys. I've been a compliant person, and now you're giving money away to those who took time.
Yeah. Yes, it's not right.
It's not right. It's not. Old people are like, what? What?
It's not fair.
I wanted the money. And now children can win stuff. And you're like, no,
Yes.
kill them all.
Yes.
In the end, vaccines, none for children anymore. But you're not dying of it. Are you dying of it? Maybe in 10 years. Who cares?
Yeah, I have a good week. I'll see
Okay.
you later.
Have a good
Good
one. Bye-bye.
night.